Everyone should read Dictatus Papae if you've never read it. And then you should go and read the one-page doctrine a document, Unum Sanctum. Hopefully you can read one page. It's not too much of a strain on you guys. And also, yeah. So in 1906, the Jewish Encyclopedia had a fascinating intro, which I've read for years, that, and I couldn't find it, but it is being pulled up here via Gemini, so it is accurate, even though I can't find the actual Jewish Encyclopedia reference. I think it's just under the Rothschilds. It points out that the Rothschilds have been the guardians of the papal treasury. Interesting. And this goes back for many centuries. I think to the 1700s is when they were given this title. And if you look up Rothschild loans to the Holy See, you will find that there have been many of these over the centuries. Well, mainly over the last couple centuries, right? In fact, the Vatican Bank itself comes out of this whole management structure of the Rothschild family being the bankers to and for the Holy See. This relationship was a notable aspect of the Rothschild family's extensive involvement in European finance throughout the 7th century. Let's see if we can find it here in the Jewish Encyclopedia. Oh, look, there we go. $2 million francs in 1845 to the Papal States, right there. Now there's more than one. Here's 16 million francs to the Papal States in 1831. These are loans. The guardians of the papal treasury. There. So, who are the guardians of the papal treasure according to the Jewish Encyclopedia? The Rothschilds. And even here it lists the Papal States as the receivers of at least 2 massive loans from the French Rothschilds. 16 million francs, 2 million francs. That's just 2 of them. Here's another one for 400 pounds. That must be from the British Rothschilds. Now, why are we bringing that up? Well, because a lot of people argue and try to give the impression that, the corruption that we see or the problems that we see, these are the liberals of Vatican II, the liberalism of Vatican II. Well, if you're aware of medieval church history, you already can see that it's not a question of, can I link it? You can't go to the Jewish Encyclopedia and just look up Rothschild for yourselves. Are you guys that lazy? It's not a question of the liberalism of the 1960s. I mean, that's a role. That plays a role in it. But what we're illustrating here, what we're pointing out is the centuries of problems and corruption stemming from what? Stemming from dogmatic change and contradiction. Stemming from an alteration after 1054 that the papacy itself admits was not the structure of the church for the first 1,000 years. And it begins to be a cardinalate, imperial banking structure, a corporate structure. And there's actually books been written about modern corporations are actually modeled on the structure of the Vatican. Hey, Jamie, when you get a chance, could you make me an espresso? You hear me? Thank you. So, the original business church is actually the papacy. Let me give you an example from another book that we've not really gotten to yet. I've only read a little bit of it. As you guys know, we did do a recent talk from Paul Williams's book on the history of Al-Qaeda. We also did some years back the entirety of Paul Williams's Operation Gladio, and it turns out he has another book on the Vatican Bank and its background in history. And I've not lectured through this book yet, but again, Paul Williams is a mainline Catholic historian and professor who consulted with the FBI for many years. So he's not in any way a conspiracy theorist, and he's very much an accepted establishment kind of, Catholic personage. But he notes that the reason for the establishment of the Vatican Bank was, as we've seen, the most secretive bank in the world that has never been audited, and thus, as a sovereign bank in a sovereign state, because the Vatican is its own city-state, it becomes a perfect means for and method for money laundering and black ops and the funding of illicit things. And lo and behold, it has always been involved in those things. And many of these scandals have come out. You may or may not have heard of this. It's the Vatican Bank scandals. In fact, there have been recent Vatican Bank scandals, but there were Vatican Bank scandals in the 60s and 70s tied to Gladio and the Mafia that are very well known. I'm not going to rehearse those. But if you would like a decent documentary that gets into Bishop Marcinkus, the Banco d'Ambrosio, and Licio Gelli, head of the Mafia, and Roberto Calvi being killed and assassinated as a result of all this. There are good documentaries that have been around for a long time. You don't have to thus read all these long books. Let's see. You know what? I might actually, this might be better on just a little hint here. If you're looking for older, classic kind of documentary stuff that doesn't pop up anymore, just use Yandex. It almost always comes up on Yandex. Look at that right there. Right away. I think this is it. Yeah, this is it. This older, blurry documentary. It's not actually Press TV. I think this is made by CBC or something else. It's actually a good documentary. But you can't get it to come up on like YouTube or Google. You have to use Yandex. Yeah, exactly, Rachel. This is just the scandals we know about. Like, imagine what we don't know about. So this one is good, and there's actually several of these. There's one I think made by the Canadian Broadcasting Company some years back, but I don't remember the name of it. Let's see, it might be this one. Let's see what this is.
On a quiet night in 1982, Italian banker Roberto Calvi is on the run.
This might be it.
He has spent a lifetime working for Banco Ambrosiano, a bank whose biggest customer is the Vatican. But now he's a fugitive, desperately trying to escape the long arm of the law. An Italian smuggler arranged for him to be driven overnight to Austria, where he shuttled between several cities for a few days before boarding to Rome to consult with the Pope.
Their financial empire.
Jewish banker James de Rothschild, head of the family's Paris-based headquarters, becomes the official papal banker.
There you go. Now, I think down the road we'll actually probably do a talk on Paul Williams's Vatican stuff, but he also in this book discusses the CIA's longtime connections with Paul VI, because they were worried that John the 23rd was too. They called him the Pink Pope, so they were worried he was a little too open to the Soviets and to socialism, and so they wanted to make sure, and thus they were involved in the conclave that elected. Originally, they wanted Cardinal Siri, and then it ended up being they went with Paul VI. And after that time, Kissinger met with Paul VI very regularly throughout the Cold War. And I think you could, and Gordon Thomas says the same thing with John Paul II. Like the CIA met with John Paul II all the time. But, oh, well, it was the Cold War. Okay, yeah, but I thought that the papacy was the guide here, and yet the papacy seems to be doing what the CIA wants during the Cold War. Interesting. Why is that? Well, at one point, the Banco d'Ambrosio collapse led to the collapse of all the banks in Italy, including the Vatican Bank, and the Rothschilds actually came in, I think, with $1 billion and bailed it out. So, by the way, thank you guys for the super chats. Appreciate that. Shepherd 911 $5. Jay, I've always appreciate the level of research that you put into this. I can see why Sam Hyde brought you on to write. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, we should have a couple new episodes out in the near future. One of them is going to be very ridiculous, so we'll have to see. I'm interested to see how many people redeem that episode. I did not redeem that episode. It's going to be a wild one. V Scott $5. Pay piggies here for the Roman Catholic cookout. Cuter $20. Always thankful for the reiteration of how much of the papal nonsense. Stay strong, Dyer. Thank you so much. Caucasian sent a membership. Thank you. Black Flame Nova $100. If Andrew gets gifts for his grift, so should you. Here's for all that you do. Wow, thank you so much, man. Appreciate that. Very kind of you. Very generous. And we also want to mention some of these scandals, because the point of all this is that this is all interconnected. And the reason that we can't point people to this institution to rescue Western civilization, all that, is that it is corrupt from the top down. That's why. It's that simple. So I know there's a lot of sincere Roman Catholics and guys that mean well, and they want to do right, and they want to oppose corruption and all that. And I empathize with it. I sympathize with it. I know I was a trad cat. I get it. But the problem is, eventually you realize this institution is your enemy. It's not the Orthodox over here that are your real enemies, these people that you're fighting against. It's the revolutionaries in Rome who wear the papal mitre. I was going to say tiara, but they don't wear the tiara anymore. So that's what you eventually get just burnt out trying to defend Roman Catholicism when the people that run Roman Catholicism are your enemies. It's a trap. Like, they're the ones that are really fighting you. And once you realize that, it's like, all right, I'm done. It's like, why am I? It's like, it'd be like trying to spend all of your time defending Biden, and then you go meet Biden and he flips you off and poops his pants and tries to fling his senior citizen poop on you. You're like, okay, I'm done defending Biden. Like, this guy's not actually my friend, and I don't think he likes me, right? We all know Biden was like pooping himself and just screwing with his Secret Service and all these people. It's like, you're like, why am I defending this guy? This guy's crazy. So let's mention in passing that we've lectured through this whole book, and even if 50% of this book is correct, let's say 50% of this book is just wrong, just factually wrong, even as an FBI consultant, Paul Williams got it wrong. Okay, let's say 50% of the book is wrong. I don't think it is, but let's say it is. The other 50% that is right is enough to show this is an absolutely insane international crime organization. That's why I'm so constantly opposed to the Vatican. It's not because I'm mad. It's not because I'm jealous. It's not because I envy Nick Fuentes' audience. It's not because I wish, I'm butthurt because Constantinople fell. Like, none of that. It's because I was in the domain of Tradcat world for many years throughout my 20s. I saw it, lived it. I understand the insanity and the doublethink and the craziness that it produces. And I don't want Roman Catholics to go through that. I want you to be free from that. I know you think, oh, you just hate Catholics. I don't like the organized crime goblins in Rome. I like Tim Gordon. I love Tim Gordon and his family. His family is awesome. He's got all these kids, and they're great. I want to see Tim Gordon free from the shackles and slavery of this organized crime syndicate that they believe is infallible. It's just crazy. So to summarize in this book, we're not going to lecture this whole book. I've already lectured through this entire book. You can go find it on the channel. The summary is just simply that in 1947, the CIA reached out to the Vatican to try to make connections because the Cold War is kicking off, and they want to try to ensure that this vast global entity will be on their side in the Cold War. And so William Colby and others, prior to that, of course, it was the Zionist James Jesus Angleton who was at the Rome desk for the OSS. Colby reaches out and they offer $65 million to the Vatican Bank in 1948 to help the Vatican win against the socialists and the communists in the election. Now, the Vatican isn't running, but they wanted to support the pro-American, pro-CIA, pro-OSS candidates, Christian Democrats or whatever they're called. And to that, because obviously if you're the Vatican, you don't want communists taking over Italy, right? Because I'm not saying the communists are good, but I'm saying that this is the beginning of the alliance with the Vatican and the CIA in 1947, and particularly here, William Colby. Now, if you don't know who William Colby is, he is a very important Tradcat Cold War figure. And there's a great documentary that his son made, and it's called The Man Nobody Knew. We've done a whole podcast just on this documentary. I highly recommend everybody go watch it. It will give you a lot of good context, and it will back up a lot of the things that you hear me talking about that we talk about in this book. The Roman Catholic Church at this time reached out not just to the Vatican, but I want to add also to Hollywood people. Gary Cooper, Frank Sinatra, they were also tapped for promotion of Catholicism and Americanism during this time period to fight the Cold War. Now, to be clear, I am not saying everybody involved in this was nefarious and malicious. I understand that at that time they thought this was the right thing to do. And I definitely believe in private property and human rights and, the Ten Commandments, I should say. I believe in those things, and I don't believe in the NKVD or the Soviet Party's line or any of that stuff. But that doesn't mean that makes all of the Vatican goblins and the CIA operatives the good guys. Okay, this is just the realpolitik, the real world. Because what happens is the means by which they decide to set up the funding structure here involves drugs and weapons. And how are we going to fund and put money into the Vatican Bank and also fund some of these black ops when, number one, we can't have this public money because that will get congressional investigation. So they do it off the books, and we're going to use the world's most secretive bank, the Vatican Bank, and the Vatican will perhaps help us if we need funding for black ops. And that's exactly what happened. In fact, many, many shell company banks are created. And these shell companies all end up tied into organized crime, Sicilian mafia, the mafia in the U.S., and the OSS and CIA. One of the key banks tied into this was the Hambros Brothers Bank, which was an OSS and British intelligence bank. Hambros himself was a British Jew who set up a bank that would be involved in British intelligence operations. And it was also tied into Opus Dei, and thus Opus Dei becomes one of the central links in this chain that would be used by the CIA and other individuals in terms of Operation Gladio. So this is where Gladio comes in to be funded through the stuff that we're talking about.